Hi, and welcome to episode 8 of the Protection Gap podcast. Today, I am going to dive into a subject that's very close to my heart, and that is why is IP still coming a poor second to critical illness in our advice process, and of course, what our customers take out. As a full-time protection sales coach, I obviously work with many firms and many advisors. Now, last week, something cropped up with one of the firms I was coaching, which is why I'm doing this podcast today. Now, the scenario I'm going to share with you isn't new. It's not isolated. I've heard it loads of times. It's just that this was so fresh and so recent, and it came from such a big network that I had to do a podcast about it. So the firm I'm talking about, I'll link to one of the large networks. The firm had taken on a brand new advisor, and they were required to attend a network induction training program, which makes sense. Now, the first part of the induction was how to use systems, how mortgages work, etc. It was fine. But when I heard what they said in the protection side of the training, I nearly fell off my chair. So picture the scene. The protection expert in the training told the class of advisors, many new to the industry, always recommend life and critical illness first. If the customer thinks the kick is too expensive, simply offer them life and a reduced kick. Now, this new advisor had already been through the income protection part of my sales coaching, where I tell them what IP is, why it's so important, why it's undersold, and probably the most important, how to get their customers to buy in to that need. So with all that information, the advisor raised their hand and challenged the coach. They said, surely we should be recommending income protection before critical illness in many instances. Income protection, according to the World Health Organization, could potentially pay out for up to 17,000 different illnesses, diseases, or injuries. Whereas the typical kick would pay out for maybe 60 or 70 of those. So why aren't you recommending income protection before kick? To which the protection coach said, yeah, well, IP is difficult to sell, so just stick to kick. That is shocking, right? Well, actually, not as shocking as you think, because I didn't reveal who the network was, and I won't. However, the short video I posted recently about that exact conversation got massive traction, and I got DMs from advisors all over the country. Many of them saying, I bet that's my network. That sounds like my network. To which I reply, I'm not going to say who the network is, but which network do you work for? These advisors came back with 5 different guesses between them. That's at least 5 or 6 networks that are prioritizing kick before income protection. We got a problem on our hands. So what are the reasons kick is preferred to income protection? Well, apart from what I've just told you, a network or a compliance team telling you you have to do it that way, and that's a conversation for a different podcast. 2, because advisors have been told to sell kick by other advisors who were told to sell kick, nobody's passed on any skills around presenting income protection. Kick can be quite easy to sell because of what's called price anchoring. So you go in with a high kick quote, 180 quid, the customer craps the bed and is like, what, I can't afford that. And then the advisor comes back with maybe a £40 kick. So the customer says, well, it's much less than 160, now it's 40, I'll take out the kick. That's why it's easy to sell, it's just price anchoring. Another reason that method works so well is advisors haven't got the customers to truly buy into the needs. It's all about cost, and it's a race to the bottom on price. So if they've maxed out their psychological limit on life and kick, and then you present income protection or family income benefit or LT afterwards, they're not going to go for it because they are maxed out with a life and kick. And of course, the other reason, which I alluded to earlier, is that advisors simply don't know how to position it. They're just quoting insurance at the customer. The customer doesn't see the need for it, so they're just looking at the price all the time. Okay, so how do we fix it? Well, here's a couple of suggestions for you. The first one is for advisors. Change your beliefs. Let me ask you a question. How many of you, mortgage and protection advisors or financial advisors, have actually got full income protection? Enough IP that if you're off sick for more than 2 or 3 months, it will pay your mortgage, pay your bills, put food on the table, pay for your annual holidays between now and retirement. Now, in my years as a protection sales coach, I ask every single advisor that question. And it's about 50%, and I'm being optimistic on that one, but about half the advisors have got income protection or enough income protection. We are meant to be the protection experts. Most of us are self-employed and we're on bloody high salaries. Yet if we were off sick for more than 2 or 3 months, that residual income would die out and we would be on government benefits indefinitely. Now, if you don't think you need income protection, how are you going to persuade a customer that they need income protection? Here's another little fun fact, just in case you didn't know it. Because you are regulated financial advisors, or you are giving regulated financial advice, guess what happens if you go off sick for 5, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and you start getting into financial difficulty? I don't mean a bounced payment, but I do mean defaults, CCJs, etc. Do you know what happens? Right, let's say in 2 years, you're fit and healthy and ready to go back to work, but you picked up a couple of CCJs and you got 6 months late payments on your mortgage. Good luck coming back into the industry. Because if you can't manage your own finances, you're not allowed to try and manage your customers' finances. So without IP, a regulated advisor could struggle financially and then lose his career. Now, if you still don't think you need income protection, perhaps you're in the wrong career. So here's a little summary of a few tips you can do to try and improve this situation moving forward. 1, if you've watched this podcast and you haven't got IP, might I suggest that's the first person you give a quote to. And hopefully you'll even get some commission from it. But peace of mind of knowing that your career will be safe. 2, start quoting IP before critical illness. Because if you're not that good at getting customers to buy into the real needs for their protection, and it's a very quote-driven advice process, getting IP in before kick means that the customers use their psychological spending limit on the income protection before you come to kick. It also prevents something called decision paralysis, where if anyone hears a lot of different choices, a lot of different information on a new subject matter, which for most customers is protection advice, they will become fatigued. And by the time they come to the 3rd or 4th party of advice, they'll be exhausted and they won't be listening to any of it. That's when you hear things like, yeah, sounds good. Could you just email us everything? We'll get back to you. And we all know they're not coming back. And my 3rd one is avoiding that situation by stopping making it all about the price. Rather than saying something like, well, this income protection will pay out £2,836 a month, index linked, if you're off sick for more than 3 months between now and retirement. How about saying something like this? What this income protection will do is if you're off sick at any point in the next 40 years, it'll come charging to the rescue. It'll pay your mortgage, it'll pay the bills, it'll put food on the table. It can make sure that Adam and Olivia can continue to get the private education, which I know you said was important to them. Basically, it'll make sure that you, Lisa, and the kids will always be financially safe and you'll never have to worry again. Suddenly, I'm not selling insurance. I am protecting what's important to that customer. That completely changes the perspective in the customer's mind. Suddenly, it's not about the cost, but it's about the need and the solution for that need. Give all that a go and let me know how you get on.